Now that the draft is over, we wanted to get impressions from around the league on each team's draft, so we asked executives and decision makers from around the league. We bring it to you in our Draft Confidential. Right now, we're looking just at the NFC South, and let's start with the Falcons. They didn't have a first-round pick because they traded for Julio Jones last year. So their first pick was the second round, Peter Cons from Wisconsin. How would you say overall the Falcons draft was viewed around the league?
I think a lot of teams were critical when you look at the picks. I think the two products from Wisconsin were both solid. Peter Cons graded out as a third rounder, but you had to get him in the second as a draft's top center. I think Brady Ewing in the fifth round was a solid pick. He could come in and be a contributor. You look at LAMAR HOLMES in the third round, I think it was a big reach. A lot of teams were critical of the mental limitations. Teams that had worked him out thought it was a major reach. Either had him off the board or in the seventh round and just didn't understand how they can take him so highly. And you look at Jonathan MASSAQUOI in the fifth. He's another player that was off a lot of boards for character concerns. He was known as a locker room lawyer and just really scared some teams. So I think both of those picks were a little bit risky for Thomas Dimitrov.
The Carolina Panthers had one of the safest picks in the draft with Luke Kuechly in the first round, and then they came back with Amini Silatolu in the second round. I think a lot of people like that pick as well. When you look at their draft as a whole, what have people really said about the Panthers draft?
One thing that really stood out was the pick they give up next year, a third rounder in 2012, to move up a couple spots in the fourth round and select Frank Alexander. That's what really raised eyebrows, if anything did. But you know, with the makeup he has, there's a chance he could come in and contribute right away and as a third defensive end in their lineup, and it could turn out to be a solid pick for him. I think they filled some needs. They've always done a good job of finding special teams player later in the draft, and I think they did that in rounds 4 through 7.
Yeah, Joe Adams and Brad Nortman. They didn't have a punter, so they had to get a punter in the draft, and it looks like they got a pretty good one. The Saints didn't have a first or second round pick this year, so they were a little bit behind the 8 ball. King Hicks is out of Regina, Saskatchewan, was their first pick in the third round. How do you think other teams viewed him as a pick?
He was widely regarded as a third rounder, and I think they got him in the right spot. There were other teams considering taking him, so I think he could turn out to be a solid value pick for him. You look beyond that, I think there were concerns about Nick Toon. He's had a hard time staying healthy, and there are some concerns about whether he's going to be able to learn an NFL offense. So, you know, there are two big concerns with him. And if you look at the other picks, the solid developmental linemen that they grabbed, I think Andrew Tiller and Marcel Jones, if they can get stronger, there's a good chance that they can become players.
Not a lot of immediate impact guys for the Saints. I guess that's the case when you don't have a first or second round pick. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think a lot of people, at least in the media, thought that they were one of the winners of the draft. They trade back and get Mark Barron, and then come back into the first round and get Doug Martin. And Levante David, another good pick there. Overall, did people around the league feel as good about the Bucs as a lot of people in the media did?
They absolutely did. A lot of GMs and decision makers are very critical of other teams' drafts, but there wasn't a lot negative to say about this group, especially the top 3. You look at all 3, I think they can come in and be instant contributors. You look later in the draft, I think Najee Good and Keith Tandy can contribute on special teams. And you know, the last 2 picks, Michael Smith and Drake Dunsmore, both were off some boards for medical concerns, but you know, if they stay healthy, maybe they can find a place too.
That's what people around the league think of the drafts in the NFC South. We have grades for all these teams available at ProFootballWeekly.com.